Philip, thank you once again for joining me. Thank you all who are watching for joining us for the discussion for the 5th bind up of Monster. We are doing discussions for each bind up every other week every week. Every other week on my channel, every other week on Philip's channel. We're going back and forth. This time we're talking about the 5th bind up. Philip, overall impressions, like, hate?
This was by far the fastest paced of the bind-ups so far.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like the story really kind of accelerated in this one. So I enjoyed it a lot. There were still a few coincidences, plot conveniences that we can talk about that, okay, well, if you just sort of suspend your disbelief a little bit, it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it, and some unexpected things, and some new. I have a feeling that Urasawa, it's more than a feeling because we've seen it again and again, is really skilled at introducing new sort of side characters, new characters into the narrative that suddenly inject a lot of interest. So This is something we've seen over and over, and that's true again in this bind-up. We have a brand new character who I thought was fascinating and compelling right from the beginning. And so that's an Urasawa hallmark, I think.
Absolutely.
At this point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Character work and really fast character work is one of his greatest writing abilities, I think.
Yeah.
So we started off in a library. We started off with some pretty dramatic things happening.
Oh.
Our billionaire has some sort of intuition, somehow knows the master plan.
Shuvalt.
Yes. What do you call him?
Shuvalt.
Shuvalt. Wow, I already forgot about that. He's been schwalled to me. Shuvalt, he sent his son away. Tenma's there. Robert, he's here again. Johan's there.
Yeah.
And we've got a big situation. What did you think? How did you feel in this big, and Nina showed up? Like, whoop.
Yeah. Oh, everybody, it was a party.
It was a party.
Yeah. The curtains came down. Yeah, no, it was interesting. It started with a couple flashbacks for Tenma, which I thought were interesting when he was a little boy playing hide and seek, and he was kind of getting bullied and had this fear of being left behind. So that was a little interesting, a little psychological kind of window into Tenma, I suppose, and how I think it feeds into whether or not he's going to be able to pull this trigger, right? And that's a big question here. That's one of the big pieces of tension in this whole scene is, will Tenma do it or not? And then Robert or Roberto, whatever he's calling himself, shows up, and there's a bit of a scuffle there, although Tenma really doesn't have much of a chance against him. But we find out that Tenma, under certain conditions, can pull the trigger, and we get that flashback to the guy who trained him, right?
Yeah, and that was really interesting because when it was Johan, he was trembling. He couldn't make himself squeeze the trigger no matter how hard he tried to convince himself. And then with Roberto or Robert, he didn't seem to hesitate, and he was able to do it, which shocked me. I did not expect that at all out of him. Did it kind of take you off guard too?
A little bit, and it took him off guard himself because he's now like, wait, I'm not trembling anymore. So he thinks, oh, maybe I can shoot Johan now, but not really. But interestingly, a question for you. Do you think Roberto is gone, or is he coming back?
I didn't even consider it. Oh no, you're right. There's so many plot twists and conveniences, and just like, because I said so, this is happening now in this story, which is one of my main qualms with the story, which I loved this bind up, but that's a good point. He might be coming back.
We didn't see his body.
Oh no, Philip. Yeah, you're right. But I mean, yeah, you're probably right. It is interesting though that Tenma did, even though he still wanted to go after Johan and he still wanted to address this whole situation, the doctor in him was still leading him, even though he pulled the trigger and that was shocking to him and that obviously has affected him, he still went for the people first. Shoot the lock on the door, get them out of here. So
Yeah.
you see that even though he is kind of, we could say, following those monstrous tendencies or reacting uh, in a very gut instinct kind of way when his life is on the line, he's still, the doctor in him is still what's leading him in these high tension moments.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, another fascinating, interesting, confusing part of this whole thing is, what does the billionaire Shuvalt know? And how does he know it? Okay, so I think it's clear he's the father of Carl. And
Mm,
the mother was Margot Langer, who
mhm,
actually was, it turns out, from the Czech
mhm.
Republic, or what was Czechoslovakia then.
Yes.
And it seems that it could be the sister of the mother of Johan and Nina. Do I have that?
Oh, interesting. I
There's a
thought they
relationship
were
between
friends.
Carl's mother and the mother of,
They definitely knew each other. They tried to cross the border together.
yeah,
I
yeah.
thought it said they were friends,
Maybe just
but
friends. But
what's
there's a
that?
relationship. Maybe
Yeah.
just friends, but there is a relationship there. So is Shuvalt also the father of the twins? How does he know this stuff about three frogs and all
Right.
this? I mean, he seems to know stuff that
Mhm. He
he's only,
knew he
yeah,
knew Johan as a child.
yeah.
I get the impression that he was a part of the experimentations somehow.
He knows a lot more than he said.
Because when Johan got in his face and he said, "If I get this close,
Yeah.
do you see me? Do you know who
Oh
I
my
am?"
goodness, that was a great scene.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, that was horrifying. when I turned
The
when I turned the page. What's
creepiest
that?
part of this, except maybe the children's book.
The children's book.
Creepiest part
Yikes.
of this whole thing so far was when he gets in Shuvalt's face
Mhm.
and says, "Look in my eyes."
Mhm.
That was seriously creepy stuff.
Dadgummit, why can't I find that scene? Do you have that scene?
I'm just about to get there, I think. It's after the fire starts. Yeah, here it
You
is.
got it? Yeah, he tells him, "Look in my eyes. When I get this close to you, can you tell who I am?" And
Yeah.
so he knows that there. Oh, can you see me? Oh, it's horrifying.
Yeah.
The
And
sound.
he's holding his face.
Ah! Yeah. So let me read that because I was under the impression that Shuvalt was a part of the experiments.
Uh-huh.
You're not scared, are you? Where did you come from? Who are you? And then he gets right up into his face and he says, "Can you see me? I know you're almost blind, but this close. Can you see the reflection in my eyes? I was born in a fairy tale village, which
Ah,
we have now confirmed is Prague. Many people died. I walked hand in hand with my other self." That's his sister.
we think.
"It was as if only the two of us existed in the entire world. We had no names."
Names.
And then he starts trembling, which ties directly into that storybook, which I have theories about the storybook.
Yeah.
So I think he was a part of the orphanage. I think he was one of the people doing the experiments on the children.
Maybe. I mean, he's done some seriously shady stuff for sure. Is he I mean, one possibility is that he is actually the father of Johan.
Yeah, I hadn't even considered that. It certainly is possible. He only seems to be trying to make amends for what leaving Margot behind, though.
Yeah.
And
And
we
so,
kind of have confirmation at this point that their mom is still alive. So why
yes.
wouldn't he be trying to do something with her too?
Yeah. Good question. Yeah. Yeah. And then
Um,
the other element of the whole thing is the super creepy children's story where the monster enters the people's. I mean, why do we tell such weird, creepy stories to kids?
I don't. Yeah, I mean, we could look back at a lot of a lot of fairy tales. A lot of classic fairy tales
Yeah.
weren't written for children. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was just like public. Here you go, humans have this. But there are definitely like Hansel and Gretel. There are definitely some fairy tales that are a little bit like, this is a weird story you're telling. What?
pretty
Why is
tricky.
this the story? Beauty and the Beast actually is one that's made for children. Now, the original fairy tale wasn't made for children. That was made for adults.
Uh-huh.
But then the Disney version is made for children. And it's like, why? But why?
Yeah. But it's interesting because you have the one monster, the twins, one who goes west and one who goes east, and the one who goes east is the one we follow, and the
Mhm,
one that basically says, "Hey, I'll make you strong if I can have your name." And then because these two monsters don't have names,
mhm.
and they enter into the people's mouths and basically eventually emerge, and the person's gone. I guess is the gist of it until you get the prince, who is Johan, and and then the monster eats its twin at the end, which makes me a little concerned for Nina.
Nina.
So,
Yes.
I mean, obviously, it's very symbolic. You could, I guess, one thing we can read into it is the idea that all of us have a monster in us,
Right?
right? That's definitely an easy kind of
Yeah.
part of this story to get. But what else about it do you think we should be paying attention to?
Well, I think the monster that had no name, or the monsters that had no name, is highly reminiscent of the twins that were found at the border, and Wolf gave them their names. And the fact that they did split up, and the fact that Johan is trying to find a name, trying to find a family, or that's the assumption, and then he kills those that gave him a name.
Yeah,
Um, the monster is getting bigger, but I think the fact that the monster's name is Johan has to be acknowledged as well, eh?
yeah, for
It
sure.
was a shame because Johan was such a wonderful name. How do you feel about that? What are you thinking?
I'm not sure what to make of it. I mean, I don't. I think this is an assumed name for sure,
Mm,
part of the character.
mm.
How that this children's story obviously is a reflection of the twins in some very significant ways. Is it the case that Johan is deliberately trying to live out the children's story? Or is it something else, like the author of the children's story knows something about them and it's kind of a key or a guide or whatever?
That's possible. That's a
But
good point.
both of them react to the story though, because Nina
Mhm,
sees it later when Lotta shows it to her. Both of them are freaked out by
mhm,
this book. So
mhm,
they've seen this book before,
mhm.
right?
Yes. So I have kind of a half-baked theory.
Okay.
So
That's all we got right now.
that's all we got right now. So we know that Johan was given this name by Wolf, eh?
That's
Wolf,
what Wolf said. Yeah.
yes. Wolf found them at the border. They had no name, and he gave him the name Johan.
Yeah.
So, because his reaction to this book doesn't seem to be like, oh no, someone's finding out my master plan, I'm playing out my childhood story. It seems to be more of a traumatized reaction.
Uh-huh.
I at first was like, oh, this is the book of the bio dad. Like the bio dad is the author. That was my theory last time.
Right.
But since now it's the name Johan, I now wonder if maybe this was a story from the orphanage
Hmm.
and Johan got the name Johan after they realized he's the perfect subject. He's already what we're trying to turn these children
Hmm.
into. And like this book was part of the weird brainwashing thing that they were doing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, the reason this theory doesn't work is because Nina too had a reaction to it and they were in different orphanages.
Yeah.
So it doesn't actually work, but I think I don't know. Somehow I think this is tied to the experimentation. I just can't really make it make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. No. I hear you. There's also the fact that Johan used the lines from the book when he would scrawl like
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
a
yeah.
monster
Yeah,
in me, it's getting bigger and it's going to come out, meaning what happens to the characters in the story, the monster takes over. Johan is afraid that that's going to happen to him, right?
yeah. Right. It's some sort of messaging. It's some sort of signaling. And I don't know if he's trying to attract the people, assuming that the orphanage theory is true. I don't know if he's trying to attract the people from the orphanage, you
Mm,
know, like the leaders of the orphanage so he can kill them too. But no, because he killed everyone. He was the last man
Yeah,
standing.
yeah.
My theory doesn't work.
It has to be a story they knew in Czechoslovakia because it's in Czech. So it's doubtful that a children's book in Czech would be in a German orphanage, I would think. So yeah, it's hard to put the timeline together, I think. Something that I've been struggling with is, like we were talking about last time, the timeline just doesn't seem to mesh very well because you have this very murky past in Czechoslovakia, now Czech Republic, and in and around Prague, it seems. And then you have the orphanage period, and then you have all these foster parents, which is hard to fathom how they all fit. So yeah, and then Johan has all these people brainwashed. So I'm not sure when we hear from people that Johan has touched, if how much stock we should put in their narratives, because it feels like, including the people, the latest parents, the latest foster parents who disappeared by the end of this volume, they're not quite there anymore.
Yeah, there's something, there's definitely a delusion that they're following as well.
Yeah.
And it's hard to tell at this point if it's how much of it is a willful delusion and how much of it is a sort of like trauma response to losing their son. And so they've kind of regressed to this denial.
Yeah.
And like fake reality that they're accepting as coping. So yeah, I don't know. We have a lot. We have a lot more to uncover, but the story definitely say.
Can I try a wild theory?
Do it, please.
Okay. Crazy theory of the day. So everybody keeps talking about, there's this emphasis on how much Nina and Johan look so much like twins, right?
Yeah.
Like identical.
Yeah.
But they're male, female.
Yeah.
We think. What we get at the end, though, it looks like Nina is going around killing all these Czech police.
Yes.
And gives the candies to, like in the hospital, remember the 3 candies, just like when.
I do remember that. I'm obsessed with it still.
So again, we have the 3 candies given this time by what looks like Nina. Is that actually Johan? And if so, is Johan disguising himself, or is Johan actually an identical twin who is posing as a male? It's a little bit wild, but I didn't think that could be Nina at the end, when you had this, looks like Nina is interacting with, Detective Souk and the other detectives, and gives the one creepy detective the candies, which he takes and the other 2 guys take, and they're dead just like in the hospital. Nina wouldn't do that, would she?
Okay.
Not the Nina we know and love.
Okay. I have to wrap my head around this.
It's probably the most far-fetched thing I've thought so far in this series, but there's something about that Nina that's not Nina. It's Johan.
So I went a completely different route with my theorizing about Nina. Yeah. And I was thinking, well, I had 2 theories. One, the 3 frogs keeps coming up, and it makes no sense. Yeah. And I had already, I don't think I had ever told you this because I didn't really believe it, but I had already been tossing around the idea that there's triplets. And and that's why she says there's 2 Johans. Remember that scene in the second bind up when she's shouting at Tenma and she's like, I figured it out. There's 2 Johans. I have to shoot him in the head twice. Yeah. And I was like, oh, what if there's 2 brothers and there's actually 3 kids and she forgot because of her memory loss, and as she's remembering things, turns out there's 3. And I've kind of had that in the back of my head, but there's a lot of holes in that theory. But then the 3 frogs keep coming back up, and I'm like, maybe. So I guess maybe instead of 2 Johans, like 2 boys, and then Nina's the girl, maybe it's 2 girls. So it's Nina, Johan, and another.
Or 3 girls. I don't know.
Because the reason I'm still kind of tossing this theory around, and that wasn't my main theory. My main theory was actually going to be that Nina is like going down a corruption arc.
Yeah.
But the main reason I was like, this can't be Nina when I was reading it.
Right.
Partially because her personality changed, her memory seemed to change, where she was like, I don't have a name. I don't know who I am. Right. All I know is 3 frogs, this childhood book that apparently we've all 3 or 2 read.
The third of the triplets.
But the big thing, Philip, that made me go, this can't be Nina, is because the last time we saw Nina still with all her faculties intact, not this weird new version of Nina.
Right.
Last time we saw her, she let Dieter come with her.
Yes. So where's Dieter? Yeah.
Where's Dieter? Nina wouldn't just abandon him. She
Right.
would still have him at her side, and he's not. So I'm like, what? If there's no Dieter, then this can't be Nina.
Right.
So I went down the triplet route.
Okay.
The idea that this is Johan, the idea that Johan has been a girl the whole time. There's a little bit of the voice actor in me that's like, if this is a girl, how did she pitch her voice as a boy all this time? Because pitching your voice, that's something like I had to take classes to learn to do male voices, and I know that's okay. It's fine. It doesn't matter. So
Johan's very clever.
Johan's very clever. It's true. In my mind, the idea of Johan being Nina doesn't make sense to me because men are very bad at pitching their voices. That's something that that's something that takes a lot of practice and you really have to work at to do.
Yeah, I mean, if Johan's going around with some like falsetto, that's not going to be very.
But if Johan's a girl,
but if Johan's a girl,
a lot easier. A woman pitching her voice lower is a lot easier than a man pitching his voice higher.
Yeah, but that still doesn't explain how he would have been shot in the head and all that. But
if Johan was a girl this whole time and has been pretending to be a boy, what about the orphanage? Are you telling me that there was never a point where Johan changed clothes in front of another boy or had to have some sort of medical exam and everybody was just like, it's fine? Like,
yeah. I don't know. We're going to have to find out, I guess. I mean, but I think we both agree on one thing. That the Nina we see later in this bind up is not our Nina, right? Unless she's going through some kind of weird amnesiac kind of enacting thing.
Yeah. I wouldn't be happy if that were the case. If she just
where's Dieter then? Right.
And where's Dieter? So I agree that this isn't Nina.
Looks like her.
It looks like her.
Yeah.
It looks exactly like her. I mean, we, the reader, are looking at her and recognizing Nina. It doesn't look like someone that
but not acting at all like Nina.
So it'd have to be actual identical twins. Can girls and boys be actual identical twins, or does it?
No, they can only be fraternal.
Yeah. They can only be fraternal. So this being a male, if Johan is a boy, then they can't be like, we can't look at them.
They wouldn't actually look that much alike. Yeah.
So we have to assume that if this is Johan, then Johan's been a girl the whole time and pretending to be a boy, and the whole orphanage thing like somehow just worked out.
Maybe.
Okay. Because we, the readers, are looking at Johan, are looking at Nina and saying that looks like Nina. So it can't be Johan the boy. This is very overwhelming.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. And then what does Shuvalt know about all this? And then, of course, you have our guy, Lunga, who's still barking up the wrong tree. But
Lunga!
You know, that
people
Lunga,
are coming to him, and they're like, here's the facts. And he's like, I refuse to accept them.
Yeah. I mean, he is so blinkered. But I will note that in our defense, what was our theory before? Our like way back when we thought maybe supernatural. So Lunga actually briefly brings up, oh, well, unless he's a demon, right?
No, Philip, that's not comforting. I don't want to be aligned with Lunga.
I know. I'm just saying he comes up with our theory there. So
yeah, which shows how bogus that theory was if Lunga believes it.
Yeah. We've discarded that Lunga. We left it behind a long time.
Ahead of him.
Yeah.
We are playing detective. It is funny that it seems like near everybody in any position of authority is completely incompetent in this series.
Yeah, often because of their arrogance. Like
because of their arrogance, but too, it's also like, well, yeah, Johan's allowed to run amok. Nobody's trying.
Right. Yeah, except for my boy. What's his name?
The new detective, the rookie.
No, not him. That's Souk. He's in the check. I mean, Reichwein. My
Yes, but he's not in a position of authority, though. He's a therapist. So
yeah.
when he tries to go to Lunga, tries to go to someone who can actually do something, they're all just like, no.
But there is the breakthrough when he early on meets with Shuvalt, the billionaire.
Yes.
He's just waiting by his
But then
gate.
Shuvalt is like, I don't really care. I know Johan's bad, but we all have a monster in us. I used to play with ants. So, meh.
But he also says maybe it takes a monster to
He
get
does
rid of a
say
monster.
that. He does say that.
And he's
I
the
Okay, what did you think
vampire,
about that?
the
What did you think he
vampire of
meant?
Bavaria. Sorry.
What did you think he meant by that?
I think he has this way of manipulating things because I think Lunga's right about one thing. When he visits Shuvalt in the hospital, he says to the other police guy, he's lucid. He is not out of it. He is, I can tell he's lucid. And I think Lunga is right in that instance, that Shuvalt is, the clock is working in there, the gears are moving. He is trying to orchestrate something in order to catch Johan. And he's using Tenma. He's using his own son, Carl, delivers at least the message to Tenma over in Prague, gives him the message. So I think he's trying to set something in motion. It's like a big chess game now that Shuvalt is trying to play against Johan. Maybe. I don't know. But why doesn't he just come out and say what he knows, right?
Oh, let's talk about that, Philip.
Yeah.
So there's a fire happening. Tenma saves Billionaire. What does Billionaire say? Hey, there's a bridge and some frogs. Go meet me at this place.
Right.
And then he goes to his son and he's like, hey, there's a bridge and some frogs. Go meet this other guy at this other place. And then he sends, and then what has happened whenever Carl and Tenma actually meet up? He gives him a cryptic message. So he does this weird nonsense goose chase, like this weird nonsense, go meet at the secret location. Here's your secret code. And then they get there and he gives them what? Clues? Instead of just, this is not how humans talk to each other.
Right.
When people want to communicate something, they say things clearly. They don't speak in code and make them jump through hoops to find the code. This is nonsense. This is not human action. It's like when Nina was like, I figured it out. There's 2 Johans. I have to shoot him twice. Like, humans that are trying to communicate to each other don't speak in riddles. This is not
3 frogs.
Yeah. This is driving me crazy. I get that it's a mystery and you want to drag us along, but my goodness, this is not human actions.
Yeah. So yeah, I do feel like Shuvalt is trying to beat Johan at his game.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure what the game is.
No. I don't know either. Okay, let's talk about Grimer.
Grimmer. Yeah.
Say it again.
Well, you could just say Grimmer.
Let's talk about Grimmer.
Yeah.
Do you trust him?
I do. I mean, I guess. He seems like a little bit of in his own little world. He apparently was a spy in East Germany, posing as a journalist. But he seems to have something to do with the loss of his son, I think, is very important. Was his son somehow or other involved in all of this orphanage business? I don't know. But somehow the loss of his son has made him what he is now, which seems to be a genuine, he's trying to get out the truth for, I believe, altruistic reasons. I like how he says, I never have carried a gun in my life. He's nonviolent, it seems even. He's clever and whimsical. He helps Tenma.
He helps a lot of
on
people.
The train. He helps Tenma escape, and he helps get him into Prague. He says, okay, here, there's where you got to go, buddy. So I like Grimmer. Did you trust him?
Initially, I didn't. Because he
weird
seemed
smile.
the smile, and he seemed too good to be true in a story full of very bad people. Seems like Tenma's the only one allowed to be morally good. Maybe Nina too. Maybe Nina and Dieter. But
Reichwein, I guess. But
okay, so fine. Lots of people are allowed to be good. But yeah, I didn't trust him at first. I do now. So the reason I love him. I love his smile. I love his very sweet, calm personality. He seems just genuinely like he's trying hard to be good, and he
Seems
doesn't really care
yeah.
what that looks like for like when the guy came and was clearly scamming him and he's like, here's some money, because he'd rather be scammed than to not care for someone. I really like that mentality.
Yeah.
He's very likable. His interaction with those boys when he met the boys,
Yeah.
he won my heart. But I have some theories around him, one of which is about the son. I
Okay.
agree. His son, the fact that he lost his son it's got to be an important piece of his puzzle.
Yeah.
So I did think maybe his son was a part of Johan's orphanage, and that's why he's so doggedly trying to uncover what happened in the orphanage.
Yeah.
However, there was one line that made me kind of reconstruct that.
Okay.
It's when he's being tortured,
Hmm.
and the guy that's torturing him says, "The only monster only the monster can unify the products of 511 Kinderheim. Those children were molded at 511 Kinderheim to be the prodigies." Okay, anyway, so only the monster can unify the projects of Kinderheim. So
Hmm.
they're trying to get this information to unify the products of an orphanage where Johan was the last man standing and no one else survived. So now I wonder if maybe there was more than one experimentation. I mean, obviously there was, because we've seen these boys
Yeah.
in this volume. But what if Kinderheim? What if Johan's group was the second group, and there was a group before his, and Grimer was in that group? He was one of the kids, because this smile seems very like, I'm choosing this, not just a natural demeanor.
Huh.
And he told that story while he was being tortured, of when he was a child, and you watch that show of the person, their superhero persona would take over and handle the thing, and the guy wouldn't even realize it.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
There was Nina only shot one person, and the others were beaten to death, and he was the one, but he doesn't remember it.
He's not sure if he did that or not. Yeah.
So I feel like maybe he's been experimented on,
Hmm.
and the monster can take over if he's in a point of distress,
Right.
and he blacks out and he doesn't remember it. And the reason his smile seems a little bit off is because he's been reprogrammed to be this monster,
Right.
but he's choosing every day, I'm going to fight that. That's not who I'm going to be. And that's why he's okay with being scammed. And that's why he is so intentional. You know what I mean? Because he's pushing back the monster, and he's like, I will be this person.
I love that theory. Yeah, that's brilliant.
It's a really inspiring character to me,
Yeah.
if that's what's going on with him.
That adds a whole dimension to his interactions with the Petrov character, whose real name was Reinhard Biermann. The guy, this dude, who
Yeah.
That guy.
Yeah.
Who was involved in all these experiments. Yeah. And I felt a little ambiguously about him before his demise, because he seems to be claiming, I don't think he's a good-hearted person at all, but he seems to be engaging in a new experiment that is more nurturing, and what if we treat these kids with love, and what can we get out of them then? He's not doing it because he cares. It's more like an experiment to him. But the kids that he's caring for now seem to be well-adjusted. They seem to be healthy. They're not killing each other. They're supportive of each other.
They're happy.
So this guy's he's a creep and he's horrible, but he's somehow doing a more benign experiment now, I guess, is what he's up to.
Yeah. It is funny to me that he was like, I went to the red light district and I collected all the abandoned children, and they're like all the same age. So it's like these women coordinate their pregnancies or something. How did this work out? And they're all boys. So did he like see a girl maybe and just be like, not that one, toss it to the side, take this boy, you know? And I understand the logic of for experimentation purposes, you know, having like a boy group, but still, it other than that little thing that just kind of made me chuckle, I know they're happy and they consider him their grandpa and they mourned his death, and like they there's an attachment there, and he clearly treated them well, but at the same time, he's experimenting on human minds.
Right.
So I'm not very sympathetic of him.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's still pretty disturbing personality trait that he's adopted. And I also feel like, okay, cool. What happens when these boys are gone? Do you experiment again? What are you doing next? And also, what is your brain that you're like, oh, figured it out? Love makes children well-rounded. It's like, why is that something you had to experiment with? It's like what Grimer said, where he's like, that's just normal parenting, bro. It's like, what is your mind that this is a revelation?
Yeah, it's interesting but I really love your theory about Grimmer, because that really adds a whole aspect to his interaction with Petrov. It's like if he came from something like that, there's some tension there, you know.
Well, yeah, and when he saw the boys, he had a very natural reaction, I think. I think most people, if you walk into a home and you realize these children are being held here and potentially something very disturbing is happening with them, naturally you're going to be disturbed. But it also adds layers to his reaction of falling to his knees and that devastation, because it's something far more personal than just what a normal human response would be.
Yeah.
Even if it was his son, though, even if we're going with the theory of it was his son, that's still very, very personal.
Absolutely. So I have a question for you. Going back to our whole thing about, is it 3 Johans, or is it Nina, or is Johan a woman, whatever? Who rescues Grimmer? Is that Nina? If so, where's Dieter? Is that Johan dressed up as Nina? Is that the third? Is it the triplet that we don't know?
What motivation would the triplet have?
Why? Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. And who's poisoning? Who's
I mean, that's
candies that
that's
can be
the Nina lookalike.
People again.
It can't be Nina. It just can't be Nina.
I don't think so either. And I don't have a good enough reason. It just it doesn't feel right.
I mean, unless Nina has the split personality. She has DID.
The DID.
Yeah.
I feel like I've moved past the idea that DID is a major plot point in this story. I think that was just a random thing that Tenma was like, "Oh, this is how I'm going to explain this," and then it was dropped. Like, it's really not. I mean, it wasn't dropped because not Grimer,
Gillen?
Lunga.
Lunga
is still, yeah, he's still fixated on that. So it's still a factor in the story, but I think I don't believe that it's a factor in our villains. I could be wrong still.
Okay. Yeah. There are so many. I mean, at this point, this is the 5th bind up. This is volumes 9 and 10? Is that right? Yeah. It's interesting to be this confused still about all these major elements, but this has been a really cool bind up.
At least we've made progress. It feels like we've made a lot of progress.
Yeah.
See, all you have to do is complain about something, and then it gets resolved.
Yeah. Good lesson for life.
Exactly. No, yeah, I don't know. Your theory about Johan being actually all this time having been a girl is kind of blowing my mind. I don't know how I'm going to react if that is true. Because that feels, oh man, I don't know. Nina has, because Nina has redeemed so many of her memories that I feel like she might have remembered that she had a sister and not a brother.
You would think, yeah.
And the orphanage thing, the fact that like nobody in the orphanage cared that they were doing experiments on boys, but this was a girl. Right. You know what I mean? I don't know. Yeah,
there are too many holes in any theory that seems remote.
Yeah, the triplet theory doesn't work either.
Yeah.
Nothing works.
But poor Grimmer, he really gets put through the ringer. And then at the end, he's kind of wondering, did I do this? You've done it again. He's talking about that show you were talking about, The Magnificent Steiner. It's the show where the inner hero or the inner whatever, like the inner Logan Nine Fingers or whatever comes out, right? So, I mean, it's just kind of poor guy. And it's ambiguous too. I guess maybe he could have been the one who beat those 2 guys to death. But
I mean, how else did
he framed by whoever shot the first guy? I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions still in my mind about Nina and about Grimer. What do you think of our rookie
Souk. Yeah.
Souk? What do you think of Souk?
Yeah, he seems genuine, and I mean, it's a super creepy thing for him to be involved in this. You have this, surface level. I'm part of the police. We're doing our thing. It's post-communist. It's still Czechoslovakia, I believe, at this point. No, it's Czech Republic. Yeah, they split in the early 90s. So yeah, it's Czech Republic now, and everything. We're a democracy, but there's this underground police who are part of the past, and apparently the people he's closest with, including his mentor, were at least being bribed by these people, and there are elements still in there. And he brings the evidence to the guy in charge, and right afterwards is this super creepy moment where the guy in charge says to the two that we know are part of the underground police, well, I guess so. What are we going to do with Souk now? So he is in way over his head. Poor guy. And he's being used by all these different sides, I think, including if it's Nina or Johan or what in disguise or whatever, whoever that person is, he's also being used by her. So yeah.
Yeah. He's very doe-eyed.
Yeah.
The way he views his leaders, his heroes, the system, he's very doe-eyed.
Yeah.
And I like that essentially what happened at the end is Grimer recognized that now that he's a major person of interest, he can't continue to pursue this story and pursue answers as a reporter.
Yeah.
And so he essentially just passes the key to him and kind of just puts his bets on someone who is maybe not necessarily competent yet, but who is good.
Who has a good heart. Yeah. Yeah.
Has a good heart. And so he's kind of saying, like, I'm betting on you, kid, which could go either way with a story as dark as this. But I hope it works out. Sometimes with somebody who's inexperienced and who hasn't proven themselves, someone betting on them is what makes them.
That's the catalyst.
Yeah. So I really hope that's what it is. I hope this bet pays off and he's able to be the one person in authority that does something.
Yeah, I just hope Souk doesn't end up like, one of the previous people who almost figured it out or did figure it out and ends up, like Richard.
Yeah.
Because I like Souk. I like that whole interaction between him and Grimmer, where he's like, "Are you going to arrest me?"
Yeah.
And he goes with his gut. I don't think you're guilty. I'm going to keep an eye on you, but because he watches him play with the kids.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And to speak to Grimer as well, the fact that he knew I'm probably going to get caught if I play with you. Like, I really need to keep moving, but I value you more. Yeah. He still chooses the children. He's such a good heart. My goodness. I think he's my new favorite character in the story.
He's wonderful. Yeah. He's in a close race for me with Reichwein. Also the shoes, that earlier moment when we first meet him, when there's the one kid who's getting picked on, and they had taken his shoes, and he gives the kid his huge, because he's a big, tall
giant shoes.
Yeah, his shoes there for a moment. I thought that was really beautiful.
Too sweet. Yeah, he really, really cares about making sure that people are cared for and know that they're. And even with the kiddos, when he asks them, he's like, "I should just keep moving, but are you happy? Do you want to come with me?" Like, he cares more about, this is before grandpa dies. Right. But he cares more about these children and their happiness and their well-being than he does for this mission of his, which also to me lends a little bit to him being the victim of this experimentation instead of his son. Because I feel like if you're the victim, then you can put people ahead of you a little bit more easily than if your child is the victim.
Yeah, that makes sense. Although we still have to figure out what happened to his son, if he literally had a son.
Sure. Oh, you think maybe it was more like a mentorship potentially?
Possibly, yeah.
Interesting.
because he's mentioned a son, but we don't know if he had a partner or anything like that. There's been no mention whatsoever of that. So it could have been a kid that he took under his wing, or who knows.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So interesting stuff. A lot to find out here, which has me interested for sure.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. This has been for me the best bind up we've had since the beginning.
Yeah.
The beginning, I was like, this is cool. I like this story. And then bind ups 3 and 4, I was like, I don't think I like this story. Like, I was real not feeling it. And bind up 3 has me excited again. I'm interested in what's 5. What did I say?
3, I think. Yeah.
Thank you for that correction. Yeah. Volume 5 has me really excited again. I think we're actually getting somewhere. The mysteries that are being presented are fun and exciting to try to solve and see what we're going to be wrong about, because I'm sure most of it we will be.
I'm pretty sure one prediction is that we're wrong about 90% of our predictions.
We'll get that one right. But I mean, this story is still leans so heavily on plot conveniences. So there's still that factor.
Yeah.
But I am enjoying it way more.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that assessment. I'm in the same place right now. And I keep hearing, and I'm looking at comments from our audience, and they're very convinced we're going to love the ending. So I've got my expectations now.
Good.
It's going to be, I have a feeling we're going to enjoy the last few bind-ups a lot.
I hope so. I obviously want to come out liking a story that so many people consider to be a masterpiece. So here's hoping.
Yep. And if it turns out these conveniences are just conveniences, even at the end, if I'm still loving all the character work and I'm wowed by the ending, then I'm on board. So.
Cool. I think I fixate more than you, so I think I'll be hung up on some of these conveniences.
We'll see if they get ironed out, because I do feel like there are discrepancies in all these accounts that don't mesh together. And maybe by the end we'll have an account that makes sense of everything, or not.
The candy trick again. I'm gonna yell.
Okay.
He's passing the candy bag around. You want some? No. You want some? No.
I mean,
people do.
I am never taking candy from a stranger again, Murphy.
I know. Oh my goodness. Anyway, yeah, very interesting. I will say, as far as the candy stuff, we believed that Johan did the candy in the beginning.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's being used again, your theory might be right. This might be Johan.
Or Nina did it in the beginning.
Or Nina did it in the beginning, and she's always been evil. She's tricked us.
I don't think I would like that as much.
I wouldn't like that. I like Nina too much. I don't want her to be evil.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me for another chat.
Pleasure.
And thank you all for watching these chats and interacting. So we will see you again next week on Philip's channel for the 6th bind up.
And Patrick will be rejoining us eventually too.
I think the next one, Patrick should be there.
Is it? Okay, cool.
I think so.
All right.
Maybe not.
Either that or the one after, for sure.
Patrick will join us again soon.
Yep.
All right. Bye, everybody.